Okay, so once you roughen the underside of the teeth, if you want to watch that video, it's part of the complete upper and lower denture processing video. There's a video that will show you how to roughen the teeth. We mixed our acrylic to the right ratios. We want to get our acrylic to somewhat of a doughy consistency, and I always like to kind of handle the acrylic a little bit in my hands. Don't want to let it get to a snappy consistency as we do if we do trial packing, because we're not going to trial pack here. So judging from the amount of wax that we had before, we want to put just a little bit more than what we need in terms of the acrylic. I want to pack a little bit of acrylic in here behind the teeth. You don't necessarily have to put anything in here because you have more than enough here. Cover the back of the teeth. So at this point, we're just over packing, right? But make sure this is the hard area here. I want to pack it all the way in to make sure that I have enough, because if I don't have enough acrylic to fill in all that void left behind by the wax, I'm going to get porosity. So for that reason, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to pack it a little bit extra. And close my flasks. This one as well. Place some in my compress. See if I have enough space. Obviously not. Just open it up a little bit. And center the flasks over the compress. Tighten it as much as you can by hand. So we have that. And then bring it over to our hydraulic press. Just open it up a little bit more. Make sure everything is nice and centered. Close it as much as you can by hand. Tighten up, close the valve, and start pumping. Rather quickly at first, and then gently slow down as pressure is building up. And you can see how much we've closed the flasks up here. This was all the way up to the nut there. So I'm going to bring it up to about 2,000 psi. Now every compress is a little bit, or hydraulic press I should say, is a little bit different, and eventually you get to feel how much 2,000 psi is. But more important, when I tear off the excess acrylic here, as you recall, I didn't have a lot of stone interference between the flasks, so it gives me a nice visual that everything is closed back together. And if I turn this around, same thing here. And of course, obviously I have excess amount of acrylic that has squeezed out, and it's still squeezing out, as you can see it there. So let it sit there for a bit. Now, unlike the conventional compresses where it requires you to remove the flasks from the hydraulic press by releasing the pressure and then trying to build it up by hand, what I like about these compresses, they're self-contained. All I gotta do is close it, tighten up the little nut here, same thing on the other side. And now, there's no release of pressure whatsoever. Because if you did, my opinion, I think you're gonna have a very hard time trying to bring this back together once you remove it from this hydraulic press. There's no way you can build up 2000 psi again by hand. Okay? So this is a great little device that you can use, and there's different kinds that you can buy. There's ones that you can buy that can hold 3 flasks, although I favor the 2 because I just find it coming together a little bit easier with 2 flasks versus 3 flasks. 3 flasks, you better have a good hydraulic press to bring them together. So you can see there that the pressure is holding steady at 2000 psi. I'm not losing any pressure, which is good. And even if I released the valve here now, and as you'll see the needle drop, right? There's no more pressure through the hydraulic press, but there's still all that pressure is well contained inside the compress. So this is good. I'm going to remove it. And depending on the type of acrylic, you want to have the right setting times for your curing units. This particular curing unit, I think this will work.
Hold it.
Oh, there we go. Thank you to my cameraman. So this particular unit, I'm going to submerge it in water. And as this unit is now, the cycle is already running. So let's talk a little bit about the unit. I don't want the cycle to run, so I'm just going to press start button and hold it, and that'll flash. So now the unit is on standby. Now we can program the unit as we wish. And this particular unit has a 2-stage setting times. So right now, if I scroll through to the right with this arrow, it'll take me through the various stages. And what I want to set it at is, for this particular acrylic that I'm using, I want to set it at 73 degrees and have it hold for an hour and a half, and then rise to 100 degrees Celsius and hold for half an hour, and then finish the cycle. So let's scroll through and see where this is set. So the first one, which is, it allows you to hold this temperature, meaning if I press it again and hold it, the temperature inside the unit right now, let me just scroll through it, and we'll go back to this stage. The temperature of the water inside the unit now is 22.1 degrees. And that's generally where you want to start. You want to start at room temperature. You don't want to be starting something that's already hot in there, because the increase of temperatures will be too quick, and you could end up having porosity inside your acrylic. So generally speaking, room temperature is a good temperature to start. So 22 degrees, 21, somewhere in there. So the first stage, it allows you to hold it at 22 for X amount of time. But I'm not going to hold it. I'm going to go straight. I'm going to start the element right away. So when I hit the button again, now we're on this incline part of the stage, which tells you how long do you want this to take. You can slow down the heat rate increase or speed it up. But I'm going to use the 0, which is the default of the unit, which is fine. Now this is affected by the amount of water that's in here. So if you have a lot of water in there versus little water, or half full or full, this will take much longer to get to the next stage, which is the holding stage, which is the setting temperature of the first setting temperature, which is U1. And it's 100, but I don't want 100. I want to get it down to 73 degrees Celsius for this particular acrylic. So I'm going to set it down to 73 degrees. One up. You can do decimal increments. So 73, and if I hit the scroll button again, this tells me now how long do you want to hold 73 for. Well, I want to hold it for an hour and a half, which is there. Now if I hit the scroll button again, it gives me the next heat rate, which again, I'm just going to leave it at default and let the unit do its thing. It uses the slowest possible heat rate for heat increase, which is what I prefer. And then the next one will give me the next setting temperature. And the next one is already set at 100, so I can just leave it there. And then once more, it's going to take me to A4, which means how long do you want me to hold this for? Not a minute, obviously. I'm going to change this to 30 minutes. 30 minutes. So if I hit it again, it'll flash. Now, I always like to verify what I've programmed into the unit just before I hit the stop-start button, I should say. So let's scroll through it again. So the first stage to hold, I don't want to hold it for any particular time. You could if you wanted to. And then the heat rate, default of 0. The first setting temperature of 73. The holding time of 73 is for an hour and a half. The next increase of temperature is a default, which will reach at U2, which is set at 100. And then once again, it'll hold for 30 minutes. And that's my program. And once it holds it there, it'll keep it there until you're ready to remove it. So now it's flashing, it's on standby, it's not doing anything until I hit this stop button. Some units will start right away. Some of them, like this one, I have to press and hold for a few seconds, and then you'll get that. Now it tells you that it takes 2 hours for the cycle to terminate. It really doesn't. 2 hours takes into account of the first and second stage, which is an hour and a half an hour. It doesn't take into account for the increase, the time that it takes for temperature to increase to 73 as well as 100, which I would say is probably another hour. So in total, this will take about 3 hours to go through its cycle. And once we get there, we'll talk about the next stage, which is removing the flasks, taking them apart, and starting the trimming and polishing process.